Hi. Well, thank you for coming this evening. And today I'm going to share with you some information about community building for your social business. So I want to share with you why is it important for the type of work that you are doing, what does it mean exactly, and also give you some examples for different communities through my work and other brands that I know and I really like. So at the end, I'm also going to be sharing with you some tools that you can take back home and work with them to further start a journey to build these communities. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit of the origins, and I think we are all experts in a way already for community building. Why? Because we are social beings. Since the day we're born, since we are 2 months, we're already starting to make eye contact as babies. So that's something that has allowed us to evolve as society, as individuals. Like, that's how we have been able to survive all these years. So since the day that we are born, we're already part of a community. So this is a really fundamental part of what it means to be human. There's like neuroscientists that says that even the need and crave for a community, it's even deeper than sometimes the one that we have for food. And for me, it was surprising when I was learning this, and now it just makes a lot of sense of why we have this feeling and how all societies are built around us. So just to start with, this is like a really fundamental thing. And then that's the base for many different things and work that you can do with communities. But it all starts here, and this is like the source. But right now, for the times in which we are living in, and in a more digitalized world, in a world that it just, we go to work and then we come back home and we don't have a lot of these social interactions. So it has really evolved, especially mostly in the West, of how we were in these communities at the beginning. So we have grown to become more isolated, or the way that we interact, it's not longer so much face-to-face interactions. And I'm saying this as I'm looking through a camera right now, so that's exactly what I'm talking. So I think it's a really important stage right now. We are building a new narrative of where are we going as a human species. I don't know about yourself, but it's very easy to feel really, really overwhelmed when you just go into the media and read what's going on in the world. There's fundamental crisis going on in every corner, in terms of health, in terms of employment, of education, financially. Like right now, I can speak about the transportation in Bishkek. So there's just so many things, and it as citizens, it can make us really feel overwhelmed, and instead of reaching to people, it can actually alienate us and try to really disconnect from what's going on. So as consumers as well, I'm going to talk to you in these examples about brands, advocacy, and social business. So how those three different types of organizations build communities. So in terms of consumptions, we are pushing out our throats for, just buying and seeing all this part of being just a transaction. And a lot of these experiences for purchasing and buying has moved into the digital world. So we don't even need to go to a shop and talk to somebody face to face and ask them anything. We can just go to eBay or Amazon and just order whatever we want. So that's even, more alienation. So this is what I was telling you, the different types of communities. And Here I'm going to talk to you an example that it's Lululemon. I don't know if you have heard about this brand, but it's an appealing brand that tries to combine athletics with leisure. So they started as a yoga company. So they sell different clothes for women, for men, for girls, for everything. So that's like the fundamental thing of what they're doing. Nonetheless, they are one of the leading brands in creating a community around their product. And with this, it just connects people who are trying to share the same lifestyle for them it's like for health, for feeling energetic, fit, but at the same time, the kindness that they find while practicing yoga. So they have, they reach out not only like in the digital community, but also they do a lot of face-to-face projects and interactions. And something that it's really interesting is that they try to have this conversation with their customers. There are many benefits that you can get when you get to know the people who are receiving your product or service. Like it can be, for instance, once you start working in the terms of health, so you can actually sell more product. It's easier for the marketing. For instance, now a lot of brands are doing that. I don't know if you saw the campaign, for instance, for iPhone. They were using a lot of the pictures that people took with their own phones, and then they use that picture, and that enables them like a source of marketing. It increases also customer service. It allows them to have a better product development because they have a constant feedback of their clients of what they like and how do they use their products and so on. So the humans who are using this brand also have a lot of, they feel heard, not only like, okay, I'm just giving my money and that's it, but you have this company who wants to get to know you, or if I share something on social media, for instance, this brand is actually like tweeting back or answering and trying to be there with the person and making it more personal, like how, for instance, here's like yoga. They did a campaign of how yoga is actually changing the lives of these individuals. So they also have different ambassadors. So they invite people who have a certain type of influence in the field, and you can do the same whenever you start working. Like you invite others to try to push it out there, and of course, you give back something to ambassadors. And in this case, ambassadors are people who are in the fitness and training kind of thing. So they can be from elite trainers to people who are actually just really good at what they're doing without having to have, a lot of recognition. So they do have a lot of events where they actually meet. So they even do like festivals. So it can go from a yoga class to a festival to a meetup. So you are constantly interacting with other people who also believe in the core values that your company has. So here's just a lot of the things that you can do, and it allows naturally for the users to share about the brand and their experiences, because they are getting satisfaction from what they're buying and also what it means to be, part of a user of this product. And you can, for instance, I could think of many other examples. Nike, it's doing the same. For instance, instead of just buying the clothes, that you can have a Nike community, you can run with people, you have this application where it connects you with people who are in your blog, and then you organize a running group. And so Nike is doing something similar. I don't know if you have heard of Airbnb. the platform where you can actually rent a room in somebody's apartment. You can actually, they are also doing different meetups, and then they have ambassadors, like the users who are really good in doing their Airbnb. It's actually getting resources for these users to get to know each other, and at the same time, everything it's strengthening the brand that they are doing. And I think for this, it's also really important when these brands are doing it, the reason of why they're doing it. I mean, of course, it all translates into more sales, right? But I think that as consumers, you also have this feeling of who are doing it only for the money, and who are also doing it, yes, because it has a monetary benefit, but it's also giving me it's giving me benefits that I feel happy with. So I think there's just a really fine line that has to do with ethics, to make sure that if you are building a community with your brand, you're doing it for the purposes that are just beyond your own benefit. So you can do it in different ways. You can offer the people content, like let's say that you can give them resources of how to train or how to eat better, or I have this new recipe and so on. So that's like content that I'm receiving as a user. You have reward programs, and many companies are doing that as well. Or gamification, that's a great way in which you can do it, especially if you're more focused on the online part. That's a great way in which you can engage with consumers and translating the interactions online into real life experiences, and keeping a unified narrative. Like what's overall, what are you trying to convey? Is it a lifestyle? Is it a product? Whatever. So you just try to make sure that it makes sense. Everything, like all the different resources that you use to keep this community.
Excuse me, what is gamification?
Gamification is when you use games to interact with people. You can do it for education, like if you think of Duolingo, like it's an app in which you're playing. So the community building part actually makes sense. I can talk about it more specifically, but just pretty much how we can use games into bringing change.
Okay, and unified narrative?
Unified narrative is what I was telling you about the lifestyles. So you have a community, right? Like for instance, in your case, it will be like what's the narrative that you want to convey, that maybe that all humans, we have the same capacity to find a meaningful job, right? So that will be kind of like the core that you focus on. Instead of sending different messages, try to stick to what it's your purpose as your business. So I'm going to talk to you about Make Sense, because this is an organization that I worked for a couple of years, and I just really love the work that they are currently doing. And it's just also a great example in which you can share what does it mean to create change by building a community. So Make Sense was born with the need to help social entrepreneurs. Social entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs who are solving social or environmental problems. So many times they were working themselves, like you are an entrepreneur, so you're working on this project, and it can be you can feel very easily overwhelmed by all the things that you have to do and the challenges, and you work alone. So what makes sense is like, okay, for in one part I have these entrepreneurs who have these challenges, and this other part I have a lot of citizens who are hungry to connect, to have meaning in their lives, to have purpose, to try to do something useful with their skills. Because at the end of the day, the volunteers, or the people who are going to be part of your community, it's they don't do it for the money. They don't do it because you're gonna pay them. It's you pay them in another way that it's not monetary. We are all hungry for giving or using our knowledge or tools or resources to something beyond us. That's also like a fundamental thing of being human, of having this purpose in your life. And many times, not everybody who has a job finds this purpose, and if this purpose is not satisfied in their job, so they look for other ways in which they can fulfill this purpose. So it makes sense that's this unification, right, for social entrepreneurs and with the volunteers, and then it matches them up in different ways, and they can do it online as the way that they can do it offline. There are different chapters, so this became now a movement. So people everywhere in the world have the opportunity to make this connection, or even to start, like a new chapter. And this is something that is also used for instance, for movements, advocacy movements. For instance, the Me Too movement. You have people who have this interest and this passion, but in different parts of the world. So what you do is that you give these citizens the tools that they need to do these programs, to run these programs in whatever they are based. So this is part of the team, and we had people from all over the world with some different offices. Sometimes you have the headquarters, and people in the headquarters in the main cities, they were supporting the volunteers who were in other regions. For instance, I was based in Mexico, but we were also online supporting volunteers who were throughout Latin America. Something else that you have to take into considerations when you're building these communities, like how can you make it really, really easy? I think right now, if you want people to take action, there's so many things, and there's so many projects, and there's so many interactions, and so on. So just when you're sharing your message, the way in which you do it in a really simple way, and in which people can take action in different options, it's a benefit. And with the different options, I mean, you might have 1 hour, you may have 1 month. I now have a lot of time, so it depends on the time that everybody else has. So, if you can make sure that every citizen who wants to take action, they can do it in different ways, that will be easier for you as an organization, because you're going to be able to benefit from that, and from you as a citizen, because it's not really overwhelming that you have to engage in this, 6-year program, or, well, they're not 6-year programs, but you know what I mean. So you go to the website, and even like since you go to the website, you're like, okay, join. I can just join and like local chapters, and I can just search something. So my attention span is not lost. It's like, okay, I can leave this website living like with a concrete thing that I can do, and that's just really valuable. Something also really interesting is that they were able to make connections with people from different parts of the world. So that also makes you unified with citizens in other places. But this adds value to your organization, to your work, because you're probably not the only person who is working with these issues in Kyrgyzstan, and there are many other people who are doing it in other parts of the world. So, searching for this connection, it gives a lot of power to you in terms of the resources that you have. Here they shared a movie. They created a documentary. So this is one of the tools that you can use when you're building your community. like the narrative and the storytelling are fundamental to connect with people. And this is a great way in which they did it. They wanted to tackle or to find solutions for the refugee crisis. So they created a series of videos of refugees in different parts of the world, and then in different countries they got people together to try to find solutions to those problems through raising funds for organizations, for creating awareness, to try to push different policies, for instance. So this is a great way in which you can take a global problem, but also try to focus it in to the local level. And using, I'm not going to show you the video here right now, but the documentary, that also it's a great tool in which you can move people into action.
The documentary is the example of how this can be done, right?
Yes. And I share this. It's just a really simple, silly picture, but it's just to exemplify some of the common things that you can find in the community. And for instance, here we were in an event in Mexico City, and we have volunteers from Mexico, but also other parts of Europe who have come to this event. And so you have this happens from like a football team. You have this unified, we have these little stamps and the sign of the organization. So you're in a part of the soccer team, you have the same teacher. You're Kyrgyz, so you may be using the beautiful Kyrgyz hats. It's just like something that you may see as something that's identify you as a group. So we were in a really big conference, but then people will see us with the little hat or the little stickers. So it was easy to say, oh, okay, so these are the kids from Make Sense. So it was it's just a silly thing, but also it's a way in which you can see the members who are part of the community. If you think back of the example of Lulemon, you can see it's like, okay, so we're wearing the same yoga outfit or whatever. So that it's actually it's really subtle, but it's also part of the components of what makes this bondage. But of course, we're all in this organization because we care about social business, because we share certain values regardless of our nationalities or differences. And also this, like the sign. So you can, it's something that it evolves, and for us, like it makes sense for us because we're like, you're young and you're diverse and you want to make something that connects with people, but that's something that you will actually discover once you know the community that you will be working with or developing. So these are just really simple examples. And also I'm going to talk to you about this community. This is a community, a program that I did last year. It's a program that tries to empower citizens and leaders in Mexico who are trying to work specifically for women issues and human rights. So what's different about this program is that many times you go to a program or a fellowship, and then you're like, oh yeah, well, let's keep in touch, and we are your community here for whatever you need, or that can happen after you graduate college or whatever. We experienced a 1 week program and it was really intense, but then that's it. Like many times that's all you had, and then you say you will keep in touch, but then it doesn't really happen. For me, something that it's really amazing of this community in particular is that they have done an amazing job in really harnessing the experience that we have of the program into something else. And and the way that they did it is really nourishing every element of every detail of the community. Like since the program, everything is like really individualized. Like once you arrive, like all these little elements. I can tell you, for example, when we arrived into the program, they were giving us, like a handwritten note of something that they have seen in our application. We have things with our names, and we shared, every one of us. The first time we met, we shared our own story, like our personal story, so that makes you connect in a deeper way for other individuals, because the story of each of us, the story of us, like collectively, of what we are here because we're working on this particular issue, and at the same time the new narrative that we are trying to create as a community. So that creates a really a strong bond. And it has been connected from the heart. And I think you can build this once you start knowing better the people that you're going to be working with. But you can have a meetup, and then you can go to a workshop and so on, but nothing replaces more intimate actions, such as meeting people for friends, going to a party, cooking together, things that are outside of the routine. And in here, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of these leaders work with really hard issues, such as like searching for people who have been disappeared in Mexico, or women who have gone through different types of sexual violence, and so on. So these leaders need to have this type of community to feel the support to go and have a deeper impact in their work. So having this space has allowed them to go back and have recharge, and also knowing that they have these people who can actually support them. So I think it's everything about the intention that you put. So this program, the House of Aini, despite that, we did this program, they have more fellows coming up and so on. So they do have these gatherings where they meet and they invite people. They now brought somebody new in the team. And this can be the role, for instance, of the community builder. So there's a person who's taking care of the fellows, who reaches back and, and calls them and see, hey, how are you? Is there anything that you need? We have newsletters as well. So how are you going to communicate with your members, right? So like maybe you can have a weekly newsletter. It's like, okay, so we have people from different parts of the countries. How do we reach back to them? So, okay, we can also have online video calls or video conferences to have this interaction, because you're building a community, and community needs time, and it needs a lot of energy. It needs a lot of sensibility to know what people need. And everything really starts with empathy. Everything, like, if you're going to start with a community thing, it's really important to consider that it starts from empathy, because you are going to be working with people who are going to come with you or to your organization or your business, and they're going to share with you the most important thing that they have, and this is time. This is it. This is like, you cannot buy time. And so this is why it's so important to have this into consideration, to think about the reasons of why you're doing it. And it's something that it takes time. It is amazing the things that you can accomplish with a community. For instance, in Make Sense, we had volunteers, like thousands of volunteers from all over the world, giving their time, organizing events and festivals to help these entrepreneurs. And they did it for, because they wanted to, because they were learning something new, because they found value in what the organization was doing. So you want to make sure that you build something that people feel proud that they are a member of, and it can also benefits from them. So I was telling to you about the identity, how you all share, something in common. So it can be the language, it can be a sign, like something that you can see members from like everywhere. storytelling. It's also about the story that you tell about us, about the narrative of the organization that you are that you're building, and sometimes this storytelling can be part of the community manager. Community manager, it's a person who's actually, their key role is to be supporting the community. And because it does take a lot of time, especially, for instance, like the brands, they definitely have maybe people who are doing the community managers, like for the real life events, and somebody who's doing the community management on their social media platforms. For instance, the House of Fine, they have the community manager who is reaching back to the fellows and bringing all the information back. It makes sense. We had people who was helping, like different leaders, like different volunteers. So they had a person to go back there. I don't know any community that can just that does it without having, the role of these individuals who are actually putting the effort to bringing people together. The human connection, what I was saying that I was telling you that it can happen in the digital world, and because of how we're living and the time that we have available, a lot of the interactions are online, but at the same time making it personal, empowerment. A lot of these volunteers, for instance, it makes sense. We had professionals who were working in government who became, for instance, mentors of the different programs. They also had an incubator program. So it's like, what do you give back to these people, right? So you want to make sure that people who are volunteering or they're part of your community, they return because they are they're growing as individuals, because they're finding purpose, because they're learning new skills. It's like, okay, maybe you have a new chapter in OSH. So the people who are going to be in OSH, they're going to be learning new skills and growing through your organization. So it's also it's giving and receiving, and I think that we have to really have this in mind and make sure that it's reciprocal. You can just go and say, okay, I'm going to build a community because I need free labor or whatever. That's not the way it actually works. And also, like, they have an evolution. They harness their talents. So they say they were a volunteer, but then they can manage a group, and then they become leaders, and then and then maybe they end up. I was a volunteer, and then I end up working full time. So that's also different ways in which you can grow as a member of the community. And the rewards, I think. There's a lot of things that you can do for, like healthy competition. For instance, if you have different chapters of your community, in this time it makes sense because we have different cities with make sense activities. So you say, okay, so which city is having more interactions, or which city is having more events, or reaching to more entrepreneurs, and it's a way in which you can also engage not only the individuals but the hubs of the cities in a different level. So these are just some of the elements that you can use. I just have this quote from Charles Einstein, who's actually one of the leaders of We Share, and it goes back to what I was telling you, that a lot of human relations are converted, into services, and you just feel like you're being used. So just really doing it for the right purposes and doing it correctly, it will be just, I think it's just the first thing that we should do. And time is the most important resource that we can offer. And this is like the exercise that I was share with you, which is just a really basic canvas. And this is to all these brands and these companies and these organizations that I share with you have been successful in building these communities because they know their users really well. and you're gonna invest a lot of time knowing your consumer. Let's say that, somebody, I think in the other workshop, they were, building clothes, right? They were designing clothes, so they want to know, okay, so who are their users? Are they young people? Are they older people? Are they using the design clothes for what purposes? Because it's like an ethical type of clothing, or where can they find these consumers, and how will these consumers be interested in sharing the stories behind? So just spending enough time to really dig into the people who you're going to be serving or working with, it will allow you to make a plan on how you start your community. So what does this person do? What are their talents? What does this person see? What are their experiences? How does this person feel? How does this person hear? So there are a lot of, this is just the brief part, but there are a lot of, this is like an empathy map, and you can have a lot of details and questions that you can ask and answer about the consumer.
These questions, excuse me, are, when we say this person, I mean the potential member of our...
Yes, that's right. And then here's the same, you have the demographics of the person, the psychographics of the person, the behaviors, what are their goals. I mean, just really try to understand as much as you can. What tasks are they trying to complete? What problems are they trying to solve? What are their frustrations? What negative outcomes do they fear? What barriers do they keep them from using a benefit already available to them? So just... These are tools that you can definitely go and, well, here's because we were going to do this, but we're going to take it. This is a book that you can definitely check out. This is, it shares a lot of really scientific information, like neuroscientifically speaking, of why we are really meant to connect and how this can help organization. And here, this is an amazing organization in Canada where you can actually go, and they have a lot of resources for building community. I mean, and just in general, like there's a lot of information, and if you want, I can directly send them to you. And that's it. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.